Today we have Holly Bryant, Ryan Berg, and Josh Randall with Aryaka to discuss securing global access across a reliable and efficient network infrastructure. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us. Appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started. I think we've done this before back in March, I believe, and so I don't necessarily know if we need to do any introductions, but we do have myself, Ryan Burke, who's Director of Channel Sales. So I support all of you sellers at TDM Claris, as well as Wheelhouse, and then Josh Randall, our Solutions Architect, is on here with us, as well as Holly Bryant, who's our Strategic Sales Director, who ultimately helps you guys during the sales cycle from a customer perspective. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me jump to the next slide here. You'll get a copy of this so you guys know who we are, how to reach us, etc. if you don't already. But this is what we refer to as our enhanced North Central team. Obviously myself, Holly, I mentioned Josh Randall. Carter is on here as well. He's kind of an equivalent to what Holly is. However, he deals with some of the smaller customers, more of the commercial focus customers whose spend is less than 100 million, or revenue is less than 100 million in terms of revenue per year. So he deals with some of the smaller customers, where Holly is primarily supporting more of our enterprise folks, which most of our customers fall kind of within that patch. So what's going on in Aryaka? This may be redundant from our past conversation, but not much has changed. But these are some of the obviously things that make, I think, Aryaka exciting for our partner community, as well as you guys to work with us. We are 100% partner focused. So all of our opportunities, all of our customers we have are all brought to us by our partner community, such as yourself. So there's no competition with direct selling folks out there, which makes it much easier, I think, and much more quicker path to success in terms of selling with Aryaka. We do have a spiff going on right now. We've had one for the past couple months. So that also helps sometimes drive some excitement with our partner folks. We do also pay full compensation on renewals. So we're hearing in the marketplace that there are some competitors of ours. I won't mention any names. Some competitors of ours, though, that are reducing the amount of residual percentage to our partners on renewals. So we don't do that. We pay full compensation on any kind of renewals from a customer perspective. We did a couple months ago roll out some new packaging pricing, which kind of simplifies and streamlines our SKUs. We've reduced the amount of our SKUs that we have from a product perspective from quite a few to just a couple, so it makes it easier to understand what we're doing and what we're pricing out. And as you'll see, when we get to the end of this presentation, I'm going to share a case study with you that we're seeing kind of a shift in customer segment. We've always been known to support those enterprise global customers, right? Or even customers that are enterprise and just spread out across the United States. But we're seeing some good traction with smaller customers, folks in the SMB market that are looking basically to lighten the load from an IT perspective, lighten the burden from an IT perspective of managing circuits, managing the WAN, managing security, etc. So I think at this point, I'm going to turn over to Holly. She's going to talk to a couple slides, and I'll go ahead and advance them for her. So Holly, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. One thing to kind of hit a little bit on that simplified packaging and pricing. If you've worked with us in the past, there used to be this concept of, different license sizes kind of based on, internet capacity, bandwidth, and things like that. And plus, subscribe bandwidth on our backbone, plus if they want HA and all these kinds of things. But now it's much more simplified, where we're primarily just doing, is it rest of world or China? And then the different size licenses actually come with and up to a certain amount of subscriptions. So a lot more simple, both from a buying perspective and ultimately flowing through to a billing perspective. So we're very excited about that packaging changes. But kind of getting into, why the convergence of, network and security. Obviously, we've seen a big shift in kind of how businesses, are conducting business today in terms of their employees. They've got, a distributed workforce where you've got some employees that are based in their branches and their different headquarters sites. And then you've still got quite a few remote users. And so, obviously when you've got kind of this wide range of where the users are located and the applications reside, you're also getting into where there's going to be a lot more, security threats and attacks, a lot more vectors for them to kind of break into. So what we get into is, where we kind of need the concept of a hybrid application deployment, because you still have some of your applications kind of hosted on the web. Some are going to be, SaaS applications, the infrastructure environments such as Azure, AWS, and then, some of the applications are still going to be hosted either in third-party data centers, or we still have quite a few customers that host their own applications on-prem in their data center as well. Go ahead, Ryan. So what this kind of presents is, a lot of different shortcomings, in terms of a lot of stitched together solutions. Maybe you're using one vendor to try to optimize your users' connectivity into the SaaS and cloud environments. Maybe you're using a different vendor to connect your locations and into your data centers, and maybe a third vendor to get into your Azure AWS environment. So you end up with a lot of stitched together solutions just from a networking perspective, not even including what are you doing from a security perspective. What that creates is kind of a bad user experience, lots of different things to log into, potentially a lot of latency trying to actually access what they're trying to get a hold of. From an IT perspective, it creates a lot of operational complexity because you got a lot more systems to manage and kind of focus on. And then it kind of gives you your ability to be agile in terms of, if you're looking to do mergers and acquisitions or even divestitures, it makes it even more complex when you've got all these different disparate systems on how to, bolt on or break away, particularly in that type of environment. So I'll kind of hand it over to Josh Randall actually to kind of cover the next few slides here. Josh?
Yeah, hey everybody. So like Holly was describing, right, there are clear and obvious challenges with the different solutions and technologies in play today. And so one of the, or rather, a few ways that we're helping address and overcome those shortcomings is through what we call our single pass architecture, right? So speaking to the sort of stitched together solution is, if I'm a multi-billion-dollar corporation and I see a small startup that has some bleeding edge technology and I want that technology in my stack, I just go out and I basically buy out that small startup, right? And then I take their technology and I just kind of shunt it into my own stack. So what ultimately happens is, when you have traffic that gets inspected for, policy enforcement, SSL inspection, what have you, it tends to ping pong around from these different feature sets and these different technologies that are, air quotes, integrated. And that ultimately equates to a poor user experience, right? Because it's adding delays, it's adding complexity to how my security platform functions. And so what Aryaka does that is unique in that perspective is, we have developed our own security platform that works in tandem with our proprietary networking technology that layers on top of our private network. And we only need to inspect the packet once, right? So it will be inspected once. We know where it needs to go. It goes through a series of, inspections, sort of, flow chart kind of thing, right? And based on the outcome, then it is either dropped or delivered where it needs to go or further inspected, right? The other thing that we tend to find is, in terms of flexibility, right, is with a lot of other solutions, whether they're cloud-based or not, you have to go all in on that single provider, right? Or you have to send all of your traffic to, a particular cloud so it gets inspected. So one of the key pillars that we are able to introduce for our customers is flexibility. So whether it's in, hey, you can bring your own last mile circuits, we can, help you manage them. We can, if you have an existing investment in a security platform you're not ready to do away with, perfectly fine. If you want to add security later or layer additional features on as you go, you can do that, right? So it offers to not only meet the customers where they are right now, but also give them the ability to grow into where they want to be in 12, 24, 36 months, right? And two other components of what we're doing here, obviously, is if you have any passing familiarity with Aryaka, is our global backbone, right? So we have a private backbone network that ties all of these components together, right? We have physical points of presence, all that good stuff. I'll mention a bit more on that here on the next slide. But just to round that out, because we're receiving, a lot of customer traffic and telemetry from devices that we deploy to the customer premise as well as in our cloud, that gives us a incredible ability to provide insight and analysis on our customers' traffic through our customer-facing portal. And as machine learning and AI becomes more and more of a thing, we ourselves are also starting to leverage that because, again, we have a ton of data, but how do you present that to a end user that might be using our portal in a digestible format, right? So being able to leverage these four main components, being a single pass architecture, proprietary, all that good stuff, right? A private global backbone, being able to provide unprecedented types of flexibility, and then finally giving the end users the capacity to understand what's happening in their network is how we can address the challenges that we're seeing a lot of our customers undergo. So, Ryan, if you wanted to flip over to the next slide. So as I mentioned, global backbone. Key takeaway from this slide is we have strategically placed our points of presence in specific geographies so that we can integrate with our, with these cloud providers as seamlessly as possible. And these are also physical points of presence. So that means that we're not, potentially limiting ourselves on the types of connectivity that we can offer to our customers. So the reason why this is important is that Aryaka, through our partnerships with these, cloud entities, is that we are able to be, an Azure Express Route, Amazon Direct Connect, Oracle Fast Connect, Google Cloud Interconnect, you name it. We have a layer 2, a virtual layer 2 cross connection capability to tie customers' network directly onto these cloud environments. And this has two advantages. One is it is a high performance link, right? This is a layer 2, so like switch to switch, so extremely low latency, sub 1 millisecond. And then, of course, these cloud providers, there's a premium on internet egress, right? Everybody uses the internet for just about everything, and there is congestion and all that kind of stuff, and that costs these cloud providers money. So they incentivize their customers to leverage these private types of connectivity, like an Express Route, Direct Connect, et cetera, by heavily discounting the data egress rates. It's something to the tune of like roughly 70% discount on data charges for leveraging this type of connectivity. So it can be a significant savings for customers that are leveraging these cloud workloads rather intensively for data. Trying to think if I missed anything here. Holly, Ryan, any other points that you want to mention here before we move on?
No, I think you covered it all, Josh.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
So if we want to flop over to the next slide, what makes Aryaka's network unique besides the fact that, we've got all these POPs everywhere, we've got our own, a backbone, right? Well, the other half of what we're doing is we have our proprietary networking platform that we have, as I mentioned, since integrated security into. But one of the, let's call it the DNA of Aryaka is a focus on the end user experience. And to that end, a lot of what Aryaka has built our framework around is application acceleration, network acceleration, WAN optimization. So a big part of that is because we have this network in the middle, that means that we can do some interesting things with how we treat traffic. So if I have a user that is, operating an application and it talks to a server somewhere else, well, if I can take this journey and cut it into functionally 3 different parts, right? I have user interacting with application that talks to, an Aryaka appliance, right? That Aryaka appliance talks to an Aryaka POP. An Aryaka POP talks to another POP. POP talks to an Aryaka appliance, and appliance talks to a server, right? So taking these different segments of this journey, we're able to take them into smaller pieces, right? And so by doing that, what we can functionally do is we're not, breaking physics or do anything crazy like that, but because we can trick the application into thinking, hey, the server responded much faster than it actually did, and then tricking on the other side the same way, the server thinking the application responded faster, because we can do that, we actually fool both ends into operating faster, and as a result, the application performs better. It's faster, smoother, more responsive, all that good stuff. The other half of it is that we're also performing what you might consider, quote unquote, traditional WAN optimization techniques. And so these are things like compression, data deduplication, we do byte level caching, that sort of thing, so that users accessing data across the wide area network itself, they get, better throughputs, the, application will operate better, all that good stuff. So by combining 2 types of essentially network acceleration with WAN optimization, we can ensure that an application will function as best as it possibly can. And so taking all of this into account, this is why I think pairing Aryaka with also security, where oftentimes there is a compromise between performance and protecting users. Well, there doesn't have to be a compromise anymore, right? Because of how we designed and architected the solution basically end to end, is you have enforcement on security as close to the users. We are accelerating the application the users are using, and then we're tying the network directly into, cloud workloads where a majority of compute happens nowadays, right? And so taking all of these factors into account means that, if I have a solution I implement for security to protect my users, but it's cumbersome or it significantly detracts from the end user experience, and it becomes, according to the users, potentially unusable, right? They're not going to use the security product anymore. They're going to circumvent it, and then your users are, you might as well have not spent any money on it at that point. So by being able to take all these things as a whole and ensuring that the end user experience is as good as it possibly can and protecting the end users, you don't have to make the compromise between performance and security, which in many cases, a lot of customers ultimately do have to make that compromise. So not so with Aryaka. So I think that's my piece of it. I'll turn it back over to Ryan to go through some use cases.
Yeah, real quick, Josh, I wanted to add something, just ask you a quick question. So no one else does what we do, right? No one else improves application performance when that application hits our network, right? And the question to you would be, is that like, what would I be losing if, I'm a salesperson and I sit down with a customer and the customer says they do have some performance issues with their existing network, and they maybe are looking at an Aryaka or looking at us, and then maybe looking at, say, like a Fortinet, right? Or just a box SD-WAN vendor. What are they not getting with that box SD-WAN vendor versus us from a
Yeah,
overall
so
product perspective?
so the challenge that I think a lot of customers run into is kind of calling back to what I was talking about, stitched together solutions, right? Is that when you look at an Aryaka, you're getting not just, perimeter security, you're getting a streamlined, leading, industry leading network in conjunction with all of that, as well as potentially, other network acceleration techniques. So if you really wanted to compare, apples to apples, I would say that, okay, if you are looking at Fortinet, then you'd also need to look at maybe the cost of, maybe like a point-to-point circuit, or
Mm.
like, high performance MPLS or something like that, right?
Yep.
And then I
Yep.
also need to layer in potentially WAN optimization, appliances as well. So you might be looking at adding maybe a Silver Peak or a Riverbed or something
Right.
along those lines, right?
Yep.
So then you're looking at not just, okay, I have to purchase these hardware components. I have to then pay an ongoing maintenance fee for the licenses for those as well. I also need to make sure that my personnel have the training and expertise to manage all of these things, right? And so it quickly, I think skews heavily in our favor when you take those considerations into account, right? And
Yep.
even if you were just to compare Aryaka, say versus like a Fortinet or maybe some other like edge, security play, is that even though I'm mentioning all of these different things, you don't have to be there's not a compromise on price either, right? In the past, I know there's been a reputation that Aryaka is very expensive, right? And in the past that was true. However, like we've described today, we have streamlined our packaging, and we want to be extremely competitive, and so we've priced ourselves such that if you were to compare, A to B, you'd find that we would be right around, what most of the competition should be, at least from a, market perspective.
Right. That's a great answer. And don't mean to go backwards, but we got to be considerate of time. But with those box vendors, you don't get this, right? You don't get this network, right? You don't get this network that enhances an application's performance from, say, from China to Denver, or even from Seattle to, say, Miami, right? And all the cost and the infrastructure that's already paid for by us. So that's not something that we build into a customer's quote. So just for the salespeople on this call, we are finding ourselves, as Josh mentioned, very aggressively pursuing customers from a price perspective. So we will not lose on price. And it doesn't matter if it's just someone putting a box on-prem, or if it's us putting our box on-prem and providing them with this secure layer 2 private backbone that they have access to improve application performance, and layering in security for them if they so desire.
Yeah, and just I think that's kind of rounds it out. I was hoping to get to some of these questions, if nothing else, Ryan.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, perfect. So, first question, how small of a customer do you serve? We have customers that are literally just like one site and one cloud instance, or functionally like what we would consider two sites. So I would say on this piece of it, personally, I primarily focus on the use case. So if, hey, customer needs accelerated access to a cloud instance, or if they want to protect, themselves from a, one office, and they want to secure access to a cloud, right? Then that's essentially minimum size would be like two sites, right? Or maybe we have remote users that connect back to one single instance, but in general, we can serve, a customer that has as few as, two locations, or remote users talking to a cloud or something similar like that. We also have, customers that have as many as 300, 400, 500 locations. So hopefully that answers the question there. Any follow-ups, just let us know. As far as UCaaS, CCaaS, so we ourselves are not a provider of communication services, but we can certainly connect our customers to those cloud instances, leveraging our network and then helping them secure that traffic as well. So yeah, we don't provide those services, but we can connect customers to them. Can we work with security infrastructure already has? Yes. So that is one of the, I think, differentiators for Aryaka is the fact that if a customer has an existing investment, you don't have to throw it out, right? They can grow into a cloud-centric SASE solution without having to completely abandon an existing investment. And then doesn't understand the value. So that one's a little bit, I'd have to think about that one. Holly or Ryan, I don't know if you guys have any.
What was the question, Josh? I don't want to migrate off of my screen.
Yeah, no worries. How do we work with a customer who needs this but does not understand the value of Aryaka?
I would say if you have a potential customer that you feel would be a good fit for us, I would definitely engage us and have us have that conversation with the customer. I'm sure we can uncover in a discovery call with a customer some of their challenges that they have and how we can address those challenges for them. So I think that the best place to start would be to try to get some sort of conversation with that customer and get us engaged, myself, Holly, and Josh, to see how we can help them. Holly, anything else you'd like to add?
The only thing I would add is generally we try to focus the conversations in a discovery type call kind of on what are the challenges and issues. So, to that question, I would likely try to dig into what challenges are they having with the current setup, and then try to differentiate on here's what you have today, here's what we could do different to improve this particular business issue. So that's generally where we kind of focus those conversations when you're trying to drive, what is the actual Aryaka value compared to, our competition and or what they currently have in place.
Yeah, just having thought on it, and just to echo what Holly and Ryan had said, I think one of the things that we can also do is work with the customer to help them understand, and we've done things like this in the past where how much time is being spent on, dealing with some of these existing challenges and how Aryaka can help the customer save time, right? Because a lot of times when we run into potential barrier of not, understanding a perceived value of the Aryaka solution is a lot of times customers that we need to cut costs, right? We need to cut costs, and we're looking for, oftentimes cheapest possible solution, right? So what we can do is work with, the customer and of course, our partners to understand, okay, how much time is being spent where and how we can help them save time, save money, ultimately, even if they find that, hey, the first blush, look at potential pricing is maybe, in their eyes too expensive or something along those lines, right? So working with them to understand the ROI and address the immediate concern for helping them cut costs and showing them where they can increase productivity and ultimately save money versus just looking at it as a net negative expenditure.
Josh, I'd also add, we can also demonstrate too through doing a proof of concept, or sometimes we'll refer to as a proof of value as well. That's definitely something we're open to doing if we need to navigate that way with this particular prospect.